I speak to you today with feelings of profound sorrow.
The document was only 3 pages long, but the final signature carried the weight of an entire lifetime. King Charles lowered his pen, studied the name written beneath the royal crest, and remained silent. Across the country, Prince Harry's last meaningful connection to the military world he once called home had just been severed. This was not a temporary suspension, a warning, or another palace negotiation. The decision was final, and Harry had privately begged his father not to make it. Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update. Charles remained alone after the advisors left. He turned the pen between his fingers, knowing the royal directive, a written order carrying the monarch's authority, had permanently removed Harry as Captain General of the Royal Marines. That honorary position linked a royal to the Naval Infantry Force, allowing him to represent its traditions without commanding troops. The order also barred Harry from using its ceremonial insignia, uniform distinctions, and privileges. Silence pressed against the room. The king had defended institutions before, but this decision cut through protocol and reached something personal. His younger son had surrendered residences, patronages, and public duties, yet this was the honor he had fought hardest to preserve. Charles knew why. The military had given Harry discipline, purpose, and respect. When royal life made him feel trapped, Harry received the sealed communication in California from the king's private office, the team managing the monarch's correspondence and decisions. He opened it without Meghan beside him. The first paragraph stopped him cold. He read it twice, gripped the edge of the table, and forced himself to continue. The letter stated that no appeal, private review, or reconsideration would follow. Then came the line that changed everything. Charles acknowledged the request Harry had sent months earlier, a documented private plea asking his father to protect this one military connection, even if every other royal privilege disappeared. Harry's anger gave way to disbelief. A second sealed page explained that the removal had not grown from one interview, one accusation, or one public scandal. It traced the final decision to a confrontation involving Charles, William, and Harry months earlier, an encounter so serious that the palace had kept it outside every public account. Harry reached the final sentence and understood the true punishment. His father had not simply withdrawn an honorary title. The monarch had closed the door on a promise. To understand why this military honor mattered more than titles, residences, or royal status, the story must return to the 3 men whose fractured loyalties transformed a family wound into an irreversible royal decision. For the public, the dispute appeared to concern protocol. For Harry, it concerned identity. For William, it concerned duty. And for Charles, it concerned the dangerous boundary between being a father and being a king. Each man viewed the same military honor through a different emotional lens. Yet none could speak about it without reopening years of resentment. Behind the uniforms, titles, and formal language stood a family still fighting over loyalty, abandonment, and the meaning of service. Harry had never spoken about the military as though it were merely another chapter in his royal life. He treated it as the one place where rank had to be earned through discipline, endurance, and trust. During those years, he felt judged less by birth and more by what he could withstand. That mattered because the palace had always defined him before he could define himself. The honorary role with the Royal Marines carried that feeling into his later life. It was a ceremonial appointment, meaning he represented the force's traditions without commanding its soldiers, but to Harry, it meant far more. The title connected him to service rather than inheritance. It gave him the belief that one part of his public identity had been built through effort, not simply handed to him by the crown. Harry admitted the depth of that fear during a private recorded conversation with Meghan at their California home. He told her that losing residences and royal patronages had wounded him, but losing the military honor would feel like a judgment on the years he had served. Meghan listened as he said the title was the last proof that the institution still recognized the man beneath the controversy. William carried a different wound. He believed his brother wanted the emotional prestige of military service, while rejecting the responsibilities attached to representing the crown. The prince did not question Harry's courage, but he questioned whether an honorary command could survive without active loyalty to the institution granting it. Charles remembered making a promise after his younger son's departure. During a documented private meeting, he had said the military question would be handled with compassion, not punishment. Harry heard reassurance. The king had intended only patience. That difference would later become devastating. Camilla noticed the conflict before anyone else admitted it. Late one evening, she found Charles standing beside a window, holding an old photograph of Harry in uniform. The queen consort stepped closer, but he placed the image face down before she could speak. Hours later, she saw him reopen the same military file advisors believed was already settled. The monarch could delay the choice, but he could not escape it. The fragile balance finally collapsed during one tightly controlled military ceremony. When Harry made a decision William believed tested the very limits of their father's private promise. Months before the final document reached Harry, an invitation arrived for a private remembrance ceremony honoring fallen Royal Marines. His name did not appear on the official program, yet the connection remained deeply personal. Harry believed his previous service entitled him to attend in a ceremonial capacity. The palace believed otherwise. What followed was not a public scandal but something more dangerous, a private breach of trust, witnessed by senior officers, that forced Charles to choose between protecting his son and protecting royal authority. Harry arrived carrying years of pride, resentment, and unresolved hope. The Royal Marines Memorial honored members of the Naval Infantry Force who had died in service, and the closed ceremony was designed to remain solemn, controlled, and free from royal controversy. Palace officials had approved his attendance as a private veteran. Their written conditions were clear. He could wear his earned medals, but he could not present himself as an active royal representative or use the ceremonial insignia linked to his former honorary command. The distinction sounded simple on paper. To Harry, it felt brutal. He entered wearing both his medal arrangement and the disputed emblem, convinced that removing it would suggest his connection to the Marines had already been erased. An aide approached quietly before the officer's reception and asked him to take it off. The request was respectful. The humiliation was not. Harry's expression hardened. He asked who had given the instruction, but the aide refused to turn the moment into an argument. Instead, the official repeated that the condition had been accepted before the ceremony. Harry heard something else entirely. He heard the palace telling him that his service mattered only when it remained convenient. William learned of the dispute from a senior officer already inside the reception. The prince could have stepped outside. He could have softened the order or delayed the confrontation. He refused. To him, intervention would destroy the very boundary everyone had agreed to respect and prove that Harry could still force exceptions through emotion. Harry ignored the first request and continued toward the entrance. A senior officer stepped forward and blocked him with calm formality. No accusation followed. No voice was raised. The officer simply explained that entry would not be permitted while the emblem remained in place. The moment broke something. Harry removed the insignia with trembling fingers and placed it on a polished wooden table. William watched without moving. The metal emblem spun once, then again, before settling between them. Neither brother spoke until the silence became heavier than the confrontation itself. Inside a private side room, Harry accused William of arranging the humiliation. The future king denied it and revealed that the order had come directly from Charles, after advisors warned that uncertainty could no longer continue. Harry answered with the one claim no one was prepared to hear. His father had personally promised that the Marines' connection would never be taken from him. Once Harry invoked the king's private promise, Charles could no longer allow advisors to carry the burden, and the next conversation would take place without courtiers, written statements, or anywhere left to hide. There were no cameras, no private secretaries, and no carefully prepared talking points. Charles entered the room as sovereign, but Harry waited for him as a wounded son. Between them rested the insignia removed at the ceremony, deliberately placed where neither man could ignore it. For several minutes, the king attempted to speak about protocol. Harry spoke only about betrayal. Then one accusation changed the tone entirely, turning a dispute over military honor into the most painful confrontation between father and son since Harry left royal life. Charles had ordered every aide to remain outside Clarence House, the London residence where the king conducted many private meetings. He wanted no notes, no interruptions, and no palace official softening what had to be said. The monarch explained that honorary military appointments belonged to the crown. They were ceremonial roles granted by the sovereign, and they required an active connection to royal duty. Harry's departure had made that connection impossible to define. Harry rejected the explanation immediately. He reminded his father of the promise made after he stepped back, when Charles had said the military question would be handled with compassion rather than punishment. To Harry, those words had meant protection. He had believed the Marine's title would remain untouched, even if every other royal privilege disappeared. Charles felt the accusation land. Compassion, he said, had never been a guarantee. His voice tightened as he admitted that every private concession seemed to return later as another public grievance, another interview, another weapon aimed at the family. Harry stared back, wounded less by the criticism than by the suggestion that his pain had become strategy. Then Harry revealed what the king had hoped would remain hidden. Months earlier, he had sent a personal letter begging to keep the honor. He had offered restrictions. He had promised not to use the title publicly, not to wear the insignia without approval, and not to attend military events unless the palace agreed. He had asked for one thing only, that the connection not be formally destroyed. Charles finally admitted that he had concealed the letter from the wider royal council, the senior group advising the sovereign on official decisions. He had done so because he wanted time to find a compromise. That choice had placed him against William, military officials, and advisors who believed delay was weakening the crown. Harry pushed the insignia across the table. The king stopped it with 2 fingers but refused to lift it. "Look at what you are taking away," Harry said. Charles lowered his eyes. Then came the question neither man could escape. Harry asked whether Charles was speaking as his father or as his king. The monarch paused before answering that the next decision would prove he could no longer be both. The decision now depended on more than Charles's emotions, because beyond the closed door stood advisors, officers, and heirs determined to ensure that one private promise could not overrule the crown. Charles possessed the authority to preserve Harry's honor, but authority did not mean freedom. Military appointments carried institutional expectations, and every exception risked creating a precedent the monarchy could not easily reverse. Around the king gathered voices urging finality. Yet the most influential voice did not come from a lawyer or military commander. It came from William, who entered the meeting carrying no file and made no threat. He simply asked his father one question that removed every remaining path to compromise. Senior palace advisors placed 3 choices before Charles. He could preserve the title privately, suspend it without an end date, or revoke it through a signed royal directive. That directive meant a formal written command carrying the monarch's authority, and once signed, it would end the appointment completely. Military representatives argued that an honorary commander could not remain symbolically attached to the Royal Marines while living outside the crown's official structure and answering to none of its rules. Charles resisted the final option. Later, in a private documented conversation with Camilla, he confessed that Harry would never see the decision as institutional necessity. His son would see abandonment. The Queen Consort listened, as he admitted that permanent removal might confirm every fear Harry carried about the family choosing monarchy over blood. William saw a different danger. He told his father that uncertainty was already causing harm. Every appearance, every medal, and every disputed insignia revived Harry's belief that the old arrangement might still return. The prince argued that delay did not preserve hope. It prolonged pain and turned each ceremony into another test of royal authority. Then he moved an empty chair beside Charles. William said the chair represented the authority that would outlive them both. One day, George would inherit the same burden. The future king asked whether his son should be expected to enforce rules that Charles had refused to apply consistently to Harry. The question struck deeper than any legal warning, because it forced the monarch to look beyond one wounded relationship and toward the stability of the next reign. The pressure tightened when Charles learned that Harry's private plea had already circulated among a small group of officials. No public disclosure had occurred, but the secret was no longer secure. Any special compromise could now appear to have been extracted through emotional pressure rather than granted through careful judgment. Charles ended the meeting without announcing his choice. He requested the permanent revocation document and read every line alone. Yet when the final page reached him, the king left the signature space blank. He was not ready, not yet. Charles allowed Harry one last opportunity to respond, hoping something in his son's words might justify mercy. Before the king signed, one final message crossed the Atlantic. But instead of rescuing Harry's military honor, its contents convinced him that delay would only deepen the damage. Harry's final appeal was not written by lawyers. It contained no public threats, no demands for apology, and no attempt to renegotiate his royal departure. It was a son speaking to his father about the only identity he believed had survived every other loss. He asked Charles to leave him one symbol of service that could not be reduced to scandal. But hidden within the plea was a sentence the king could not accept, and that single line transformed sympathy into resolve. Harry wrote the letter by hand because he wanted no advisor shaping the language and no legal phrase weakening its meaning. He asked for the honorary title to remain dormant, but technically intact. He promised not to use it publicly, wear its insignia, or attend a Royal Marines event in that capacity without palace approval. The role could remain silent, he argued, as long as it was not formally destroyed. Meghan watched him seal the envelope and understood what he was risking. Harry had spent years describing his relationship with the royal family as damaged beyond trust, yet he was now placing his most vulnerable hope inside that same relationship. She asked whether he was prepared for rejection. He did not answer directly. He only said that Charles needed to understand what the honor represented before deciding its fate. Harry explained that the Marines' connection had become inseparable from active service, fallen comrades, and the years when courage mattered more than royal rank. The title was ceremonial, but the emotion beneath it was real. It linked him to the period when he felt useful, disciplined, and accepted for what he could endure, rather than for the family into which he had been born. Charles read the letter alone. The king moved slowly through every promise until one sentence stopped him. Removing the honor would make reconciliation meaningless. He returned to those words again and again. Harry may have intended them as a confession of pain, but the monarch heard a condition placed upon their future relationship. Advisors saw emotional leverage. Charles saw something even more troubling. The military title had become so entangled with forgiveness, loyalty, and fatherhood that it could no longer remain institutionally stable. Preserving it would not heal the family. It would keep the wound open and force every future conversation to pass through the same unresolved demand. The following morning, Charles signed the directive. Royal Marines officials received instructions to remove Harry's name from internal ceremonial records before any public announcement. There would be no further review. Harry read the confirmation without speaking. He opened a box containing military photographs and old insignia, lifted one image, and pressed his thumb against it. Then he closed the lid without returning it to the shelf. Meghan stepped closer, but he quietly asked her to leave the room. The loss had finally broken through his anger. In the silence that followed, Harry reached for William not to fight over the crown, but to ask whether anything between them could survive what their father had done. There were no advisors listening, and no palace statement being prepared. William answered, expecting another accusation, but Harry's voice carried none of its familiar sharpness. For the first time in years, the brothers spoke without debating interviews, memoirs, security, or royal status. Harry asked only whether William had wanted the honor removed. The answer was not what he expected, and the conversation that followed shifted the story away from punishment and toward a truth neither brother had been willing to confront. Harry had chosen a private number that remained unused through years of public hostility. Even William hesitated before answering. The silence between them carried everything they had failed to say, but Harry did not begin with blame. He asked one direct question. Had his brother wanted the title taken away? William answered carefully. He admitted supporting a final resolution because endless uncertainty had damaged everyone, including Harry. But the prince denied asking Charles to humiliate him or erase the truth of his military service. He had wanted the honorary appointment settled, not the years his brother had earned through discipline, danger, and sacrifice. Harry struggled to accept the distinction. He confessed that the title had become his last proof that the family still remembered the man he was before the rupture. Losing it felt like being reduced to a single act of departure, as though everything before leaving had been rewritten by what came afterward. He feared history would remember him only as the son who walked away. William's voice softened. Each battle over residences, uniforms, security, and ceremonial privileges had forced them to speak as competing royal figures. He said, when beneath the conflict, they were still two brothers, carrying grief neither had properly faced. Every argument about the institution had protected them from confronting the family they had lost. Then William revealed what Charles had never included in the directive. The king had preserved Harry's original decorations and complete service record from any alteration. Those honors had been earned through active duty and could not be erased by the removal of a ceremonial appointment. Charles had also rejected harsher recommendations that would have limited Harry's attendance at future remembrance events as a private veteran. Harry fell silent. The decision still wounded him, but its meaning had shifted. His father had removed the royal command without denying the soldier who once served beneath it. Before ending the call, William told him that his military service belonged to him and could never be taken away by a signature. Harry closed his eyes and struggled to answer. "That is the first thing you've said in years that I believe," he finally whispered. Forgiveness did not follow. Trust did not suddenly return, but Harry agreed not to challenge the decision publicly, and that fragile private understanding would soon collide with headlines, broadcasts, and crowds, as a deeply personal loss became a global verdict on duty, exile, and the limits of royal forgiveness. By sunrise, the decision was no longer confined to palace rooms or private letters. It dominated broadcasts, newspaper stands, veterans' discussions, and crowds gathered outside royal gates. Some saw a king defending military integrity. Others saw a father publicly closing the door on his son. Yet one image captured the emotional weight more powerfully than any commentator could. An old photograph of Harry in uniform placed beneath a headline, announcing that his last honorary command had been permanently removed. Buckingham Palace released a short statement confirming that Harry's appointment as Captain General of the Royal Marines had been withdrawn by order of the king. The position was an honorary military role granted through royal authority, not an operational rank earned through active service. Palace officials stressed that Harry's military record, decorations, and years in uniform remained respected. The Crown was removing a ceremonial command, not rewriting the service behind it. Charles watched the morning broadcast without sound. Commentators argued over whether he had acted as a responsible sovereign or a father making family separation permanent. The king did not react when the headlines appeared. He simply remained seated, knowing the public would judge a decision made behind closed doors, without ever hearing the silence that had followed his signature. Harry faced a different pressure. Requests for comment arrived within minutes, but he refused to release a statement. Meghan urged him not to answer while the wound was still fresh. He agreed. Anything written in anger, he told her, would turn private grief into another public battlefield and destroy the fragile understanding reached with William. Then the story changed. During a live broadcast, one presenter revealed through a documented briefing from a palace source that Harry had submitted a confidential appeal asking to retain the honor. The decision suddenly looked less like routine royal administration and more like the rejection of a desperate private plea. Public sympathy shifted. Questions multiplied. Inside the palace, concern spread immediately. Only a tightly restricted circle had known about the handwritten letter. Charles understood that someone had leaked its existence deliberately, perhaps to show how deeply Harry had fought to keep the title, or to make the king appear colder than the official statement suggested. Outside Buckingham Palace, a former royal marine placed a small wreath beside the gates. Attached was a handwritten card. Service is remembered. Commands belong to the crown. Cameras captured the message, and by evening, it had become the defining image of the day. The words reached both men. Charles saw the distinction he had struggled to defend. Harry saw the separation he had resisted, but could no longer deny. Independently, father and son decided their final responses must protect military service from royal conflict. When the noise finally began to fade, one fact remained. The honor was gone. The decision could not be reversed, and both men now had to decide what survived after the uniform was taken away. The document stripped Harry of an honorary command, but it could not rewrite the years he served, the dangers he faced, or the soldiers who knew him before royal conflict consumed his name. Charles' decision was final, and its consequences were painful. Yet the true verdict did not rest in whether the king had won or his son had lost. It rested in the boundary finally drawn between service that is earned, privilege that is granted, and love that cannot survive when continually tested through titles. Harry understood that the decision would not be reversed. His name disappeared from the ceremonial command lists, the official records identifying those who represent military units on behalf of the crown. Yet his decorations, operational history, and veteran status remained untouched. That distinction mattered, because the palace had removed a royal appointment, not the service he had earned through discipline, danger, and sacrifice. Charles recorded his reasoning in a private written account placed among his official papers. The king stated that he had acted to protect the monarchy's institutional clarity, meaning the clear separation between those performing royal duties and those living outside its authority. He did not question his son's courage. He did not deny Harry's contribution, but the monarch believed uncertainty had become more damaging than finality. Harry chose silence before issuing a restrained public statement. He honored the Royal Marines, accepted that the appointment had ended, and affirmed that his respect for those who served did not depend on holding a title. The decision cost him deeply, but he understood that attacking it publicly would turn his military identity into another weapon in the family conflict. William recognized the change immediately. The removal ended the last unresolved ceremonial dispute left behind by Harry's departure. The prince knew reconciliation would still be difficult, but future conversations no longer had to carry another argument over uniforms, insignia, or royal privilege. Harry returned the disputed emblem in a small, unmarked case. Charles opened it alone, held the insignia for several seconds, and placed it inside the royal archive, the protected collection where important objects and records are preserved. He did not destroy it. He did not display it. He simply closed the drawer. The king kept Harry's handwritten appeal in his private file, not as evidence against him, but as a reminder of the price both men had paid. Charles preserved the crown's authority and wounded his relationship with his son again. Harry lost the symbol he had begged to keep, yet finally accepted that his service required no royal permission to remain meaningful. The military honor belonged to the monarchy, and the king reclaimed it. But the service belonged to Harry, and even Charles's signature could never take that away. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in next one.